Last year's Jets-Browns Week 2 matchup ended in fireworks, no doubt about it. What will tonight have in store as the green and white try to play spoiler in the dog pound as in Cleveland, led by a familiar face in JoeFlaco, and they would clinch a playoff berth with a victory. Ethan Greenberg, Eric Allen, Quincy Enunwa here in Florham Park. Anthony Becht will join us from Memphis. Caroline Hendershot from the sidelines. EA, the Jets have their work cut out for them tonight in prime time.
First, I want to say you look great in that seat, and you both look dapper here for Thursday Night Football. Number one for the Jets. They're coming off a nice victory against the Washington Commanders. Short week. You're going to have to match the intensity against the Cleveland Browns. Think about it. The Browns are wearing all whites tonight. They're asking the crowd to come in for a whiteout. And this is a team that wants to celebrate. For Cleveland, if they win, they will cement their spot in the postseason. And oh, by the way, they have an outside chance to win the AFC North. So for the New York Jets, Q, bottom line is this is an intensity game because you know what you're going to get from Cleveland in the dog pound. They're looking to eat tonight.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I remember when I played in prime time in Cleveland, it was always a fun game. The atmosphere there, the dog pound really gets going during those games, right? And for the Jets, it's a spoiler game for them. Let's go out there, have some fun. Let's ruin Cleveland's chances a little bit, you know?
At least delay them for a little bit. We'll see what happens. And Anthony, let's bring him in from Memphis. The Browns signed JoeFlaco to their practice squad in Week 13, and he certainly seemed to inject some life into that team like we've been talking about on the heels of a playoff berth. What's been the difference for that Browns team with Flacco in the lineup?
Yeah, I'll tell you, you talk about Stefanski, the way he builds his offense. It's a run-built offense, but, man, they got a guy that can throw it. And now you have a little bit of a dual threat when you're talking about what they bring to the table offensively. He's a pocket passer. He's able to deliver on time. He's able to deliver a very catchable ball. Amari Cooper had talked about this as one of his receivers, saying it's the best ball he's ever caught from a quarterback, and it's timing and being on time. And all those receivers, tight ends, are getting an opportunity to really maximize themselves the last couple weeks of the season. I'm actually solely shocked that Flacco's been able to go out there and really carry the ship that he has. And you guys talked about this, a primetime game for the Jets on the flip side. Yeah, we know the Jets aren't going to the playoffs, but you're going to get a little taste of the atmosphere, what it feels like to actually be in that moment. And they got a chance, like Quincy said, to be a spoiler. So going out there, I think it's a huge test. And we talked about this last week. Guys still have a lot on the line personally as themselves to go out there and really show out and play well in this football game. I'm really excited to see how they continue to, again, finish the season. It's not going to the playoffs, but here you go. You get yourself in an atmosphere that will carry that here in Cleveland.
I don't think anyone might have thought that it would be Trevor Siemian for the Jets, JoeFlaco for the Browns as we enter Week 17 of the NFL season in 2023. And it's amazing because Cleveland could become the first team since 1950 to make the playoffs after starting at least 4 different quarterbacks in multiple games this season. EA, continuing on JoeFlaco here, he's not the most mobile quarterback of the bunch, and he's known to turn the football over, especially in these last 4 games for the Cleveland Browns. The Jets like to turn the ball over. How vital is that today?
Here's one of the most underrated stats going into this game. You're speaking of turnovers. Do you know who leads the NFL in giveaways? It's not the New York Jets. It's actually the Cleveland Browns with 32. Right. So for the Jets, in order to win this game tonight in this atmosphere, they have to steal a couple possessions. I like what we got out of the defense, if you're a Jet fan, last week with the turnovers. They got to get those tonight against the Cleveland Browns. You're talking about Flacco so far, 3-1 as a starter, 10 touchdowns, very impressive, Q. Yeah. But on the other side of the coin, 7 interceptions.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's really impressive what Flacco's doing. I mean, you look at their quarterbacks on the roster right now, Flacco's actually leading in stats from all the other quarterbacks, right? He's only played 4 games. That's really impressive. He's going out there, he's playing confident, and I love to watch what he's doing really because, he used to be with the Jets, so you have a little bit of a tie to him. And it just feels different, right? The guy was sitting for a while, and it feels like he has something to prove. And you're seeing him go out there. I mean, to give Amari Cooper 250 yards, I like what AB brought in, right? He said that's the best pass that he's ever gotten from a quarterback, and I believe it. Me and EA talk about it all the time. Veteran quarterbacks, guys that just can go out there and they know the game, they know the defense. When they can play free, it's just the best type of football, honestly. So I'm happy for those guys, but the Jets need to make it bad.
This is a great story because Flacco was sitting on his mom's couch
Right.
just a few weeks ago, waiting
Right.
for his opportunity. And here he is facing his former team, Green.
Yeah, this is a lot of people say the NFL is scripted. This is a great script because we're going to go through all the connections in a little bit between the Jets and the Browns for this game. But Quincy, for this guy right here, Trevor Siemian, EA just mentioned the Browns #1 in giveaways, the Jets #2, the Browns #1 defense, the Jets #3. A lot of parallels between these teams. But for that guy right there, Trevor Siemian, how do you go about attacking this Browns defense that is the best statistical unit in the NFL?
Well, if I'm being honest, I think it's going to be important to take the ball out of Trevor Siemian's hands, right? I think he's continuing to get comfortable in his offense. He hasn't had a lot of opportunity, right? He came in late. This is his first start last week. It was against a Washington team that wasn't doing very well, and he had a couple good plays, but he didn't really string together enough to say, okay, this week we really want to put it in your hands. So go out there, do what you did last week, right? Give it to Breece Hall. Give it to Garrett Wilson. Those are your playmakers. Give them opportunities to make those plays for you, help you feel confident, and then you can really go out there and take it over if you need to.
Anthony, I just want to get your opinion on Trevor Siemian before we head to Cleveland. Last week, he wasn't really asked to do a whole lot. This is a very good defense, like Quincy just talked about. Do you envision the same kind of recipe for Jets success as Quincy just laid out?
Well, I think I go back and think about the passing tree that this team was kind of basically the entire first half of last week. It was slant, working different types of slants, and another slant, and another slant. So they're going to try to get the ball out of his hands quickly. Yeah. This is a legit pass rush. I mean, we talk about Myles Garrett, but Darius Smith is on there as well. They bring a lot of pressure on the inside. It's very difficult to one-on-one block these players, and even double teams sometimes are a problem when you're using the tight end versus Myles Garrett. He just finds a way to get to the quarterback, and the quarterback always has a sense of timing when you're playing against a guy like those two off the edge because of the fact that, okay, I got to get the ball out. So how do you parlay that? Screen. You have to have a good screen game today, swing passes, wide receiver screens, and then when the time comes to take your shot, it has to be built off the run game. Breece Hall had a nice run game last week. On the football's offensive line needs to really hunker down and at least knuckle up and try to get something sustained on the ground. If they can do that, that play action pass game, even moving Trevor Siemian with play action fakes and things of that nature, he doesn't have to be athletic to do it. He just has to be able to sell that run. That can help him in this football game.
Trevor Siemian, 1 touchdown, 1 interception against the Washington Commanders last week. Let's head out to Cleveland, bring in Caroline Hendershot. We kind of talked about Amari Cooper a little bit, but speaking of playmakers in general, Caroline, there are a couple of them coming off monster performances from last Sunday.
Yeah, Amari Cooper, Ethan, like you said, is one of them. 265 yards, a career high for him last week, 2 touchdowns against the Texans. Now, last year when they played the Jets, he had 101 receiving yards, 1 touchdown. So the Jets will have to monitor him and make sure they don't let him get loose because once he starts going, it's hard to stop him. However, he is dealing with a heel injury, and his status is going to be a game-time decision. He said he was hopeful to play, but that's just something to keep in mind. Now, on the other side of the ball, Jets running back Breece Hall, another one with a monster game last week, 191 all-purpose yards, 2 touchdowns against the Commanders. Now, this is Breece Hall's second game with 95 rushing and receiving yards. The only person to have done that more times than Breece Hall, Walter Payton. Now, get this. Breece Hall will be going up against the Browns' #1 ranked defense. However, I like this stat in particular. The Browns have hit opposing rushers behind the line of scrimmage on 50.9% of carries in 2023. So Breece Hall and the Jets offense are going to have their hands full going against this Browns defense.
That's great stuff, Caroline. Fascinating numbers on the Cleveland Browns rush defense. But I want to focus on Amari Cooper here in Florham Park because it's crazy to think about this. Amari Cooper last week, that was his 4th game with at least 200 receiving yards. That's tied for the 3rd most in NFL history. What's even crazier, he's done that with 3 different teams. He also leads the NFL in receiving yards since JoeFlaco has taken over EA. Caroline talked about it a little bit. Amari Cooper, he eclipsed the century mark when these teams faced last season, week 2.
Here's a hot take for you. You guys just mentioned, you and Caroline, that Amari Cooper had 265 yards receiving last week. I don't think the Browns are going to pass for 265 yards tonight. I will say this. Listen, let's get Quincy on Coop because I think he's one of the best receivers in the National Football League. In fact, I asked Sauce Gardner about him, and he said, listen, as far as a route runner is concerned, this guy is easily in the top 5. Now, throughout the season, we've seen Sauce Gardner manned that left corner spot, but at times the Jets have traveled. Tonight, Q, I ask you not only to break down Amari Cooper, but do you travel Gardner more than typically?
Well, so this is the thing about traveling for the Jets, right? It's not as though they have somebody on the other side as a chump, right? You have DJ Reed, who is a monster of a cornerback, a guy that's undersized a little bit, but he plays bigger than what he's listed as, right? So you don't really want to travel too much because you feel like you can trust that guy and you want to give him the utmost confidence that you believe that he can do that. Now, if this was a situation where you were putting him in a slot, where Amari Cooper was more of a slot guy, there's a possibility you might want to put somebody there. But as far as Amari Cooper, this guy, the reason why he's so good is just the guy is so consistent. I mean, off the line of scrimmage, there's probably nobody that's quicker than him. He'll move left and right so fast. He moves like a small receiver, but he's a big receiver. And then he plays big as well when the ball's in the air. Anytime it's him against somebody else, he's always coming down with it. He's a talented guy. He's got every single level of the route tree he can do. It doesn't matter what you ask him to do, he'll do it for you.
Sauce Gardner, Pro Football Focus has him graded number 2 overall as far as the cornerback position. We're watching him stretch right now, Greens. He's had a tremendous season. I don't care that he doesn't have any interceptions. And in fact, I wouldn't be surprised if he gets one tonight because we're talking about Flacco and the potential for giveaways.
Yeah, Flacco has 3 straight games of 300-plus passing yards. He's thrown at least 1 interception in 2 out of his 4 starts, at least 2 in both of his starts. You mentioned not 265 passing yards for the Browns. That leads us to the all in or not today. That's a great cue up here because if you're watching this, you have to go to my Twitter, anyone who's retweeted it. Look, here's today's question. The Jets will hold Joe Flacco to under 235 passing yards. All in or not today. Make sure to go vote. And we talked about it a little bit before, just the connections in this Jets-Browns game. So let's start with Joe Flacco. That's the obvious one here because he used to play for the Jets. Then now with the Cleveland Browns, he started 4 games for the Green and White in 2022, signed with the Browns practice squad in December on the 14th in 2023. Last year, he was throwing passes to Garrett Wilson, especially in Cleveland. He had 8 receptions, 102 yards, and 2 touchdowns against the Browns in that Week 2 finale. That's a great shot of the game-winning touchdown. Who else was Joe Flacco throwing passes to last year? His current teammate, Elijah Moore, who was traded from the Jets to the Browns in March. And remember, the Jets ended up getting a second-round pick in that deal. That was used on Joe Tippmann. So right there, that's Garrett Wilson. We'll see what he has in store. He's not an Ohio native, but he grew up a little bit in Ohio, played collegiately at Ohio State. So, Quincy, for an encore for this guy tonight, this is a tough matchup here.
Absolutely. I mean, it may be some of the same players out there, but it's a different scheme, right? You have a different coach back there, a guy that is going to know how to take Garrett Wilson out of the game. But obviously, you know, the Jets know what they need to do in this game. They need to give the ball to Garrett Wilson. And like AB said, there was a bunch of slants last week. I think they're going to try to do that again this week, giving him some one-on-ones, maybe up against a Mike, maybe up against somebody else, just giving him opportunities to get the ball in space and you know, give him them yards that he needs to get to 1,000.
And if Elijah Moore is called on a little more tonight, EA, because of Amari Cooper's status up in the air, I think that bodes well for the Jets.
Yeah, that's quite interesting that he is on the injury report, right? Questionable?
Questionable with a heel injury.
With a heel injury. And AB, what will you be watching for in terms of Cooper out there in warm-ups to see whether he's going to be able to give it a go?
Yeah, I mean, he's going to clearly go out there and get a full warm-up, get himself going, pressing off. I mean, listen, this is crunch time, man. This is December. Yeah. You know, I remember being in these months playing for the multiple teams that I played for when we had a playoff push. Your body's hurt, you got nicks, and you got all kinds of things going on, and you find a way to push through it. You use the modern medicines out there that you're allowed to take now and really, you know, lean on those things, but your mind and your adrenaline push you through a lot of the injuries and a lot of nicks you have now. You're a receiver, you're pressing off your feet. Obviously, you're talking about hands and feet are the most important thing. When you got to heal, you know, there may be a little bit of a pain there as far as where that Achilles area is or whatever that may be. And sometimes that's something you'll have to deal with through the whole game. So, look, I got a feeling, you know, where this game is, what it means to this football team, I got a feeling you're going to see the best you can get out of him in this game, and he's going to want to try to duplicate or try to go out there and follow up what he did last week in their big win.
Yeah, I agree with that, Greens. Don't you? I mean, there's so much on the line tonight. Cleveland wins, they're in. They're in. It doesn't matter what happens elsewhere.
Yeah, I think it's going to be fascinating to see what happens. But there was JoeFlaco at midfield. Let's move on I guess you'd call it like a family tree here. Justin Hardy from Cleveland. But you remember last year, he recovers the onside kick that set up the Jets' game-winning field goal. But the whole reason why the Jets won in regulation was because of a mixed extra point from Cade York. You fast forward to today, seems like Greg Zuerlein, who was dealing with quad soreness throughout the week, he will be available. The Jets signed Austin Siebert to their practice squad earlier this week. They did not elevate him. Special teams important every game, but with two top 3 defenses on the field, EA, just how important is Greg the Leg and that special teams unit specifically?
Well, I think it would be a huge boost for the Jets to get Zuerlein out there. He's had the best kicking season in franchise history. And on the other side of the coin, whereas if you're a Browns fan, you're typically thinking, hey, listen, and every drive with a kick. Is that really going to be good for the Browns tonight? Because they have a new kicker in Riley Patterson. They also have a new kicker, Matt Hawk. Quincy.
Yeah, I mean, I want to kind of follow up with that Justin Hardy graphic because I was watching some film yesterday, and I made a tweet about it a little bit. But Irvin Charles on the opposite side at gunner, I mean, that combo right there, that's really why this punting game has been so good, because those guys get down the field and they allow these situations to be the way they are. Irvin Charles, I mean, that guy is going to find a way. You know, next year, obviously, he's going to have to really fight for it. But he can find a way to get into that receiver room and really start getting some playing time, you know, if he's keep doing what he's doing on special teams.
Yeah, not many people are built like Irv Charles in terms of size, speed, ability to get downfield. Thomas Morstead said that himself when I spoke to him. We talked about Trevor Siemian. He started against the Browns for the Jets week 2 of 2019. It was his first start. That's what he did last week against the Commanders, completed 55.1% of his passes, 217 yards, a touchdown, and interception. Unfortunately, in 2019, this guy's season ended at the hands of Myles Garrett, who's just an outstanding force for the Cleveland Browns and ties it all together here. He has 9 sacks in 5 games against the Jets. That's the most in his career against any opponent that's not in the AFC North. And, of course, Myles Garrett sackless over his last 5 games, longest streak of his career. If you're Trevor Siemian, he spoke a little bit about this earlier this week, Anthony Becht. He said, look, like, I remember the play. Of course, it ended his season, but you always have to beware of where number 95 on the Cleveland Browns is at all times, even though he hasn't had a sack in 5 games.
Well, yeah, he hasn't had a sack in 5 games, but if he's watching film of the Jets' offensive line, he's going to see some weaknesses. He's going to see some times in the game where there's a little lack of focus on the edge. You know, the problem with Myles Garrett versus other pass rushers in this league, normally I'd say run right at him. This guy's an extremely good run stopper as well. He's long-armed, he's strong, he's big, he presses the pocket. He's got extremely great bend for a guy that is bulky and muscular as he is. And there's other pieces on the defensive line as well. He didn't have any sacks last week, but Zadarius Smith had 2 in the last game. So pick your poison. Eventually, you're going to have to get tight ends, running backs involved in the chip game. But again, being able to run the ball effectively isn't as easy a chore as it maybe is in the past because of the fact that they are strong run-stopping defense as well. To me, I think the biggest factor in the run game, say what you want, and I'm sure we're not going to see much of it today, is let's not pack the box up with a lot of bodies. Let's not move the wide receiver into the pack as well and let them dig out the safety. Let's spread them out, man. Let's just work with space and put space on our side versus putting more bodies and asking guys to block up more people. Sometimes that's the ultimate changeup. Now, does that take a lot to install and put into your offense? I don't think so, because you're only talking about 5 guys with potentially a detached tight end, or even with 10 personnel with no tight end, where you can actually have the quarterback hand off versus a look, or throw the pass if someone is trapped into the box and there's an empty body. Will we see it today? I don't know. I don't have any secrets on it. But as I look at this defense, guys, what is your plan? How do you function? It's been tough already. Those kind of things on a short week, it may not happen, but hopefully they were working on that the last couple weeks to build up for this opportunity.
Yeah, the Jets are missing a good run blocker, too, and Jeremy Ruckert out with a concussion. Zach Kuntz elevated or signed from the practice squad to the active roster. But don't miss your chance to win 2 2024 Jet season tickets plus a year of free Dunkin' coffee. Text Dunkin' to 26154 to enter the Dunkin' Holiday Sweepstakes. Terms do apply. It's time for X Factor here on Pregame Central. Let's bring back in everybody. And Caroline, boots on the ground. We'll start with you. Who is your X Factor for tonight's game?
I am going to go with the Jets secondary, and this is why. JoeFlaco, 10 touchdowns in these last games that he's started for the Browns, but he has also had 7 interceptions. And last week, the Jets got 2 interceptions, one being from safety Tony Adams, and Ashton Davis got his 3rd fumble recovery of the season. So there's a lot of good players in that secondary. However, the Jets also have not allowed a 300-yard passer in 33 straight games. And JoeFlaco has passed for over 300 yards in each of his last 3 wins. So I think that's going to be the big challenge today, is stopping him and stopping their offense.
Guys, I'm going with the offensive line for the Jets. The big thing for me is, if I'm going to talk to my offensive linemen how to have success against these guys, I would say one thing. Make sure you handle the line of scrimmage, in particular double teams, before you decide to interject to the second level. Because today is a day where a guy like Breece Hall, who I've watched in college for 4 straight years with Iowa State, everybody knew he was getting the ball and everybody was condensed in the box. The games where he was struggling is when they always try to get to that second level quicker than they had to. It's not a big issue in this one for me. Stay on the defensive lineman early, get that push you need, let the back go to work, and if you got to come off late, Breece Hall is good enough to sway himself right, left, or through anyone else in the second and third level. Again, hunker down with the offensive line and really work on those double teams and make sure that backside guy is cut off. If they do that, I think they can have success.
Oh, yes. Sorry, guys. I was focused on football field, baby. So anyways, for my X Factor, I'm going with the Jets pass rush, right? Caroline talked about it a little bit with going against JoeFlaco, but for me, I think the biggest thing is this guy is a sackable quarterback. He's a guy that's a little bit of a statue now. I'm going to say this, though. This year, he has been looking pretty mobile, so it's going to be a little bit of a challenge for these guys. But if they can get him down, if they can make it a little bit shaky back there, they can at least affect the game a lot more than anybody else.
Q, I'm glad the camera is on Quincy Williams right now, because David Njoku is my X Factor tonight. The Browns tight end is an athletic freak. He's got 75 catches, 748 yards receiving, and 6 touchdowns. Quincy Williams is having as good a year as any linebacker in the National Football League. I love what he gives you in pass defense. He's going to be challenged, though, tonight against Njoku, because the Jets are going to spend a lot of their time, I think, concentrating on Cooper. And this is a guy you got to be aware of where he is on the football field at all times, and he can get down the field. We think about tight ends greens, and sometimes we think about them intermediate routes. He can get vertical on you.
Yeah, and Njoku, I think, is top 3 in the NFL in terms of yards after the catch at tight end. And if there's ever a linebacking core that's prepared to face a guy like that, it's Quincy Williams and C.J. Mosley, the top 2 PFF linebackers in terms of coverage grade. For my X Factor, no, we haven't really spoken about this. I want to go with Denzel Ward, 4th overall pick a couple of years ago out of Ohio State. Mentioned another Buckeye to Buckeye connection. Denzel Ward means a lot to this football team. And paired with Martin Emerson, they're both top 5 in terms of most targets without allowing a touchdown in coverage in 2023. Denzel Ward has missed 3 games this season. The Browns have allowed 27 points or more in each of those games. They've only done that 3 times with Ward in the lineup. Definitely something to keep an eye on. But be at MetLife Stadium next season to experience the action and energy of Jets game day. Lock in your 2024 season tickets to see the biggest matchups of the year. Learn more at nyjets.com/season tickets. All right, a couple minutes here before we get the inactives at 6:45, but it's time for All In or Not Today. Only 2 times that we can say that for the 2023 season. The final time in the year of 2023. Starting from the bottom, Anthony continues to lead from the back, 2-13. It's honestly very impressive, because every time that I think you're like, you know what, I think Anthony's going to do it, Unfortunately, it's another loss.
I can't believe it. Just staring at that number right
it's
now,
impressive.
it just looks wrong.
It's impressive. Tied for 4th is EA and the fans. Caroline and Quincy are tied. And I will say that Quincy did say last week something along the lines of like, I'm a little scared because I'm rocking with AB, but you thought that you'd be able to bring him out of his dump.
Nah, you know what? I should have known better. And hold on, man, with this graphic, why did Caroline jump me at 2? Like, okay, we're tied, but let me still be at 2, though.
They do that all the time back there.
Hey, come on,
My
man.
favorite.
Maybe it's alphabetical. C and a Q.
I guess, maybe. We'll go with that for now.
Anthony, do you have anything to
Come on, ladies first.
Okay.
Yeah.
My bad. You're right. You're right.
Anthony, you have anything to say before we fire up today's question?
I need to start keeping my mouth shut, I think. I've been saying too much over the last 15 games, and right now it's not treating me well. But I am trending. It's just in the wrong direction.
Is there anybody in the league right
I
now?
feel like the Detroit Pistons, guys.
Ooh, that's a good
I
question.
feel like
I don't
the
think
Detroit Pistons right now.
Well, we'll make Caroline start today's question first, but realistically it should be Anthony. But Caroline, for you, bat and lead off here, the Jets will hold JoeFlaco, who has thrown for at least 300 passing yards or more in each of his last 3 starts, to fewer than 235 passing yards. All in or not today. And before you start, I just want to say the reason why we came up with 235 is because the Jets were allowing over their last 4, which is when Joe Flacco's been playing, an average of 159 passing yards per game. That meets in the middle between 300 or 326 and 159. We're at 235. The floor is yours.
I am going to go all in. I believe that the Jets will hold him to under 235, and here's the reason why. I think that if Amari Cooper is a little beaten up and not fully healthy, maybe they're not going to be throwing it as much, and he's not going to have as monster of a game as he did last weekend. However, I also think this Jets secondary, these Jets cornerbacks, Michael Carter II, like, these guys are the real deal, and I just don't think that they are going to allow that many passing yards. So I'm going to go all in, and I'm feeling pretty confident because, your girl's in second place, so nothing to lose.
Anthony, where are you going?
Yeah, guy, you know what? I got to be honest with it. My strategy is, where is my heart at? My heart is all in, right? So I'm thinking, if I'm feeling good about that, I'm probably going to end up losing. So I'm going to go the other way and say not today. Listen, look, Joe's pretty much put up, the numbers to speak for itself since he's been a starter. I don't see how that can change. The one caveat I worry about, guys, by saying not today is, what will the Jets do to counter them to pass the ball enough in this football game to actually push them towards those yards? So by the fact that I'm saying not today, I'm forcing the Jets offense to actually go out there and score some points, which is what I'm kind of rolling with in this one.
AB, I like the strategy. I took it last week, but I lost. And I'm just going to let you know this week you're probably going to lose again. So. I'm going all in. And because, I looked at the game. I watched the film, and I don't think it's sustainable, right? I don't think that Joe Flacco can continue to perform the way he's performing without a run game. They have 0 run game. So it's going to be very hard to go against this Jets secondary and continue to do that. I can't even see them getting to 300 yards. It's not possible. I know it's been his average, but that's going to be very difficult to do this week, so I'm all in.
I second that. I'm going all in. I think the Jets have the top cornerback trio in the National Football League. Sauce Gardner, DJ Reed, and Caroline mentioned Michael Carter II before. Those guys have been outstanding. And don't think for a second that it doesn't matter to them as far as being considered the top pass defense in the National Football League. The top pass defense in the National Football League is the Browns right now.
Right.
So for them, this is their opportunity, their final opportunity on a national stage to make a statement. I think they make a statement tonight.
I totally agree with that. And before you put my answer up, I just want to know, from a strategy perspective here, if I go all in.
There he goes again.
No, I'm just saying, if I go all in, the best that anyone can, this is not tooting my horn here. The best anyone can do is tie where I'm at statistically.
Yes.
So I want to have an exciting week 18 in New England. So I'm riding with Becht. I'm going not today.
Hold on, but do you believe in this pick?
Honestly,
Listen,
honestly, I'm
loses because of
50-50.
this,
No, I think you got to go with what you believe, your heart.
if he loses because of this, I will be happy. So
Right. So, look, I'm going to go now today. I think that Joe Flacco will throw the ball a lot. I really do think that 235 is a good number because, like, we don't know how this game is going to go. If Cooper is or is not in the lineup, I just think that it's going to be interesting to see how many times he puts the ball in the air because the thing is that they're going to try to throw the ball even without this Jets defense on the field. With the Jets defense on the field, if they contain Jerome Ford, I think they'll do a good job in both facets. But
Greens, while you get to the inactives, I will say that throughout the year, everybody's talking about the Jets' offensive line injuries. The Browns are down to like their fourth and fifth or sixth tackles.
Yes.
So he's going to look to get rid of the football because who knows this Jets defense better than Joe Flacco?
yeah.
Totally. In terms of the fans, 63.2% go all in.
Oh, yeah.
The Jets will hold Joe Flacco, the former Jets quarterback, to under 235 passing yards. 20% or 20+% say not today, riding with me and Beck. Here are the inactives for tonight's game for the New York Jets. Wide receiver Alan Lazard, quarterback Aaron Rodgers, quarterback Zach Wilson, tackle Austin Deculus, tight end Jeremy Ruckert, defensive lineman Carl Lawson, cornerback Bryce Hall. There you have it. Jets, Browns, no word. I'm checking Cleveland Browns Twitter right now to see if Amari Cooper is in fact active. I have not seen the tweet. So we're going to sign off here from Florham Park. Make sure to tune in to Jets Overtime after the Jets and Browns in Week 17.